The broadcast of the regular meeting of the Charter Commission Redistricting Rules Work Group will now begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Charter Commission's Redistricting Rules Group meeting. This meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local health pandemic. The city will be recording and posting this meeting to the city's website and YouTube channel as a means of increasing public access and transparency. This meeting is public and subject to the Minnesota Open Meeting Law. For the record, my name is Matt Perry, and I am co-chair along with Andrea Rubenstein of the Charter Commission's Redistricting Rules Work Group. I will now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll so we may verify the presence of quorum.
Commissioner Abbott, Commissioner Ginder,
Present.
Commissioner Schwarzkopf, Commission Chair Clegg,
Here.
Commissioner Abbott, Commissioner Schwarzkopf,
Lyle, you may be on mute.
Commissioner Schwarzkopf, Co-Chair Rubenstein,
Present.
Co-Chair Perry.
Here.
There are 4 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have quorum. We'll now proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for the public access to the city's legislative information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. So adoption of the agenda. Commissioners, the agenda for today's meeting is before us. May I please have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move, Schwarzkopf.
Second, Ginder.
It's moved and second. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Ginder,
Aye.
Commissioner Schwarzkopf,
Aye.
Commission Chair Clegg,
Aye.
Co-Chair Rubenstein,
Aye.
and Co-Chair Perry.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
That motion passes and the agenda is adopted. Next on the agenda is acceptance of the minutes. We have one set of minutes to accept from our regular meeting on April 15th, 2021. May I please have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second, Schwarzkopf.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Ginder,
Aye.
Commissioner Schwarzkopf,
Aye.
Commission Chair Clegg,
Aye.
Co-Chair Rubenstein,
Aye.
and Co-Chair Perry.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
And that motion passes, so the minutes are accepted. The next item on the agenda is the chair's report. I do not have anything to add except other than what's on the agenda today. And I just want to give Co-Chair Rubenstein an opportunity to ask you if you have anything that you'd like to add to the chair's report.
Thank you, Co-Chair. The only thing I want to add is to thank Ms. Bashoon, Christina Kendrick, and other staff for being so helpful in our review of these and revision of these rules and procedures. So thank you.
Thanks for those comments. I totally agree with that. I was just noting that we have quite a number of changes and a bunch of paper, and to keep this all sorted out so that we're operating efficiently has been largely due to staff effort. So thank you. So we will proceed with our agenda, and it's item 5.1 on the agenda, considering potential additions to the procedural rules of the redistricting process. And if we could pull up the bullet list for this item, I would appreciate it so that we can go through it. To the work group, what I've done here, what staff has done with my request is that put a list together of changes, proposed changes that we need to consider that have made where there have been changes made since our last meeting. And so I'd like to go through this and get comment back. So they may be reflected as having been changed, but this is more a point of where we will agree or disagree or discuss. And I'd like to follow the same thing that we did last time, which is if it's a consensus item, adopted as a consensus item, and then adopt all of the consensus items as at one point at the end of going through the list. So starting off, we have where Ms. Bashoon is recommending combining rules 3 and 12 and with the insertion, the recommended principles for redistricting Minneapolis wards and park districts after the 2020 census adopted by the Charter Commission. Does anybody have any comment or suggestions or changes to that? Hearing none, I'll take that as
Mr. Chair,
yes.
sorry, I have one.
Yes.
Actually, it's not on this bullet list, and I'm sorry to mess it up. But
Nope.
in paragraph 2 of the procedural rules, and we accepted this last time, and when I was reading it over, I realized there's an inconsistency. It says members of the redistricting group shall represent the residents of Minneapolis and shall do their very best to put aside any personal biases or interests while redistricting, etc. And I just realized that in the principles, we deleted that phrase, do their very best. And so we might want to consider making that consistent with the principles. And while I'm at it, I just wanted to say I neglected to say deep thanks to Nicole Weber and Maddie for also all the work that they've put into this.
Okay, so you have a suggestion of on number 2 to
Right.
strike do their very best.
Correct.
Okay. Does anybody have any concerns with that? Hearing none, I'll take that as a consensus item. And just a note that Maddie is taking notes for us, so she'll be updating the document in addition to her other duties today. All right. So back to rules 3 and 12. Is everybody okay with that? Carol Bashoon's recommendation. I'm seeing that as not hearing anything, so I'll take that as a consensus. Item number 4. Ms. Bashoon suggested inserting who is a charter commissioner. Any issues with that? And I am not hearing anything, so I will take that as a consensus item. We can, okay, 6 is showing. So there's some questions here that we might want to discuss. But does anybody have any issue with including the rules that are basically extracted from the Minneapolis Charter Commission for absences, Rule 2.1.6. I'm not hearing any. Ms. Bashoon, you note that it doesn't make a determination whether an absence is excused, except for when excused after within 24 hours of the meeting. Do you have any comment on that?
On the, are you talking about on the actual language I added? Or on the, or the 24-hour limit?
The 24-hour limit?
I mean, I didn't have any changes to that. I wasn't sure exactly what it meant. I assume that you can only have excused absences if you mention it after the meeting under special circumstances, and I didn't know what those special circumstances were. I didn't make any changes to that. The only change I suggested is that as to who would make the decision on whether the absence is excused or unexcused.
Yes. Okay.
And that's not in the rule. Maybe that's something that you could consider placing in the rule. I don't know if it's an automatic, oh, it's, you know, Casey gets the notification and that's sufficient. You know, or the Charter Commission coordinator gets the notification and that's sufficient, or if somebody actually makes the decision that that's excused or not excused.
Okay. So does anybody else have any comment? I think the idea was to try to make sure that we were being consistent with what the charter commissioners as members of the redistricting work group were responsible for in terms of notification. So I think that's where that came from. And
Right.
I don't know if we want to dive into changing that rule here and then not have it reflected in the rules of the commission. But Co-Chair Rubenstein, you had your hand up.
I did and changed my mind, but I'll just want to say that we had not discussed before a limit on excused absences. And I understand that that's to make it consistent with the Charter Commission rules. So I'm fine with it, but I just wanted to make sure we accepted it with our eyes open.
Okay. Is there any other comment on this? So I think we will move on. We'll accept this as a consensus item. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see there have been some numbering changes. But let's move down to where 10 is now 11. And Ms. Bashoon is making the change that you can read on your screens there. Any comment on that? Putting that language in?
Chair Schwartzkopf.
Mr. Yes, please.
There's the comments on the side, and what she's recommending is that we add a sentence at the end, I think, over and above what we have right now. I believe that's what's being suggested. I'm not sure. And I have no problem with that sentence if that's what we're doing.
Commissioner Perry, can I offer an explanation?
Yes, please do.
The one sentence in that paragraph says all neighborhood organizations recognized by the city of Minneapolis shall be notified of all group meetings. I don't know if you want to do that. That might be, we may have so many group meetings a couple times a week, maybe more. And I don't know if we want to be actively having to make sure that we notify each and every neighborhood organization for each and every meeting. And so my thought is that you could instead take that out and make a change to suggest that the redistricting group should suggest to all neighborhood groups recognized by the city of Minneapolis that they should request to be placed on the city's clerk's electronic distribution list. Right now, Gov Delivery is set up with the so that you can get information from the redistricting group. I think it would be a more efficient process if we would just say, hey, organizations, please set up on this Gov Delivery, and then they can automatically get those notifications of meetings. It just seems like an awesome task to have to go to every, I mean, I guess you could have one email with all the government organizations, all of those neighborhood organizations on the email, but then somebody would have to be in charge of making sure that every time a meeting is set, we provide notification through that email. So I'm just looking at efficiency and whether or not we can fully implement the rules. I don't want you to have a rule that we don't implement.
Thanks for those comments. Someone has their hand up and my team's display is not allowing me to see who that is, so I'm sorry.
It's Clegg.
Yes, sir.
I agree with our counsel on this one. If we did want to provide notice, affirmatively provide notice, we should limit it to the 4 public hearings. But I think it's fine to say we just recommend that they sign up to get our communications.
I agree with that. Any other comment?
Mr. Chair, Schwarzkopf.
Yes, sir.
I agree with it too, and I wonder, do we need to make a motion to add that, or just if no one objects, we just add it?
So what we're doing is if everybody agrees with it, we will take it as a consensus item. And then at the end of going through these rules, we will vote on whether we agree to accept all consensus items. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Ginder?
My only concern was, I think it's quite easy for NCR to notify all of these organizations. I mean, they have to listen. We have our liaison with NCR. It seems to me that, you know, when we notify them, then they just do an email blast out to everyone. I could be wrong on that, but so I'm not sure that there's the issue there that Ms. Bashoon articulated.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sandberg?
Thank you. And I bet Commissioner Hawkins has her hand up for the same reason, but last time we did in fact work with NCR for this type of communication to the recognized neighborhoods, understanding there are some neighborhoods that aren't recognized, and that's another issue. But I don't know if that affects your language or not, but I would suspect that the outreach committee would be planning on working with NCR for that purpose.
Okay, Commissioner Hawkins.
Hello, you won't have to recreate that list that's already there. There is a list and there's over 70 neighborhoods that is on this list, and all you have to do is get a stuff to NCR and they can shoot it out for you.
Okay, it sounds like we, given that we have a list, do any of the people who were for the change want to reconsider their opinion?
I am fine with giving notice to all neighborhood organizations as long as it's not administratively burdensome.
Okay.
Okay, too.
All right, so we won't include that language. We'll include the other language about the, I'm sorry, we won't include that language then in 11. Is everybody okay with that? Hearing no dissent, I will say that is a consensus item to not include that. We have 13, 13 has been changed. If we can get that list up, thank you again. 13 has been changed into 13 through 16 to keep the concepts separate. And the language is based on charter provisions and is more accurate than the revising the existing lengthy language in 13. Any comment? There's a hand up, and again, I apologize. I can't see whose hand it is.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner
Co-chair, yes,
Rubenstein.
co-chair, please proceed.
Yes, the breaking out of that paragraph, I think, is an excellent idea, and I certainly support it. I had one question, though, about what is now paragraph 13, that says that the redistricting group shall redistrict the city wards and the park and recreation districts at the same time. And as I recall from last time, and I think what this language was before, we first did the wards and then we did the park districts. And so I just wanted to ask Ms. Bashoon the reason for putting them, stating it this way.
Great point. Ms.
Yes,
Bashoon?
yes, Commissioner Perry. I think this language was I just kept this language from the last time. There are different deadlines for the park districts and for the city wards. Technically, we could redistrict the park districts later. There's a little bit more leeway in our time, but last time we just did it all at once. We finished all at once. And when we had the public hearings, it was for both the wards and for the park districts. And so we were pretty much doing everything together at once. And so I think that's what that reflects. It reflects how we did it last time. I don't know if we started with ward maps and then went to park district maps or what we did, but a lot of the public hearings, well, the public hearings were, I think, probably both the park district and the wards. And, you know, somebody could tell me otherwise, but I think we always had both the park district and the ward maps at the 4 public hearings. And we could change this. This was language left in, and it was language. It's not really, I don't think it's technically in our charter, but it's kind of process.
Commissioner Clegg, and before I recognize you, I just want to note that Commissioner Abbott has joined our meeting. Commissioner Chair Clegg.
My recollection is the same as our council's, that we did do these both at the same time the last time. The reason it might seem different is because we only went through one round of changes with the park board because there was only one line that needed to be redrawn. And the park board was okay with our very first effort to redraw the line. So we then set it aside until the end. But they were both approved at the same time. And the public hearings were for both at the same time. So I think this language was in there last time, and I think it should be retained.
Any other comment? Does that, Co-Chair Rubenstein, does that answer your question on that item?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comment, question about this? So I think, and unless I hear otherwise, I'll put 13, the item of 13 being changed, 13 through 16 to keep the concept separate, and to keep the change in the language at 13, the redistricting group shall redistrict the city wards and park and recreation districts at the same time, the same as it was. I will consider that a consensus, 2 consensus items. Okay. 11 is now 12 with no change. Oh, I'm sorry. 14 is now 17. So we have some suggested language change here. Ms. Bashoon, do you want to explain any of that?
Yes, I just changed the language a little bit to, I think reflect what could be reality. The redistricting group really doesn't technically approve a plan. They recommend a plan to the Charter Commission. I don't know if you prefer the language approve, but if the Charter Commission doesn't like what the redistricting group recommends, or if you want to use the term approves, I would assume they can do a couple different things. They can send it back if there's time to the redistricting group to say, hey, could you look at this issue or that issue? Or they can develop their own plan and then vote on their own plan with input from the advisory group. So we didn't have to go to the point last time where the Charter Commission had to develop their own plan. But I just thought that realistically, the Charter Commission might be able to send it back and say, hey, redistricting group, can you look at this other issue? So it's just a proposed, maybe I think it might be a better approach because it really probably reflects reality, although we didn't have to get to this point last time.
Any thoughts about the language change that's being proposed? Hearing none, I will consider that a consensus item. We go to 15, which is now 18. And Ms. Bashoon, maybe you could comment again on your suggested change.
Yes. I guess this is more wording change. Of course, we took out any other election districts throughout the document, but it's just more specific. It will dissolve once the Charter Commission approves the maps. So it gives a specific timeline because there's a specific date by which the Charter Commission approves the maps, and then it leaves in unless the court finds the plan improper and returns it. So it gives a specific finite date to when the redistricting group would resolve absent court appeal.
Okay, thank you. Co-Chair Rubenstein?
Yes, I just had one question. The word unless, or unless a court finds the plan improper, suggests that then we could undissolve the redistricting group. But I wondered if we need to say it, in other words, that we don't, we want to have the option to reconvene the redistricting group, including the advisory group. And again, I just wondered if we need to state that.
May I respond?
Please.
Yes, I mean, I considered that we could change that language too. I kind of left it a little bit like it was, but I mean, if you look at it technically, if you say we're going to dissolve it, and as soon as the Charter Commission approves the maps, and then you could say we will reinstitute it if the court finds the plan improper and returns it. So we could use that alternative language. And I thought there was some language similar to that in some past documents, but I don't see it. But basically, that's what would really happen. If you want to say we're dissolving it at the time the maps are drawn, and then we'll reinstitute it if we need to. And maybe dissolve is not the best terminology either. But I mean, I'm open for suggestions on that.
Commissioner Abbott?
Yeah, that's exactly my my question too, which is, if we dissolve, does the body even exist to reconstitute itself if a court finds the plan invalid? So I don't know if you want to put in some language like adjourns or adjourns pending finalization of the plan, subject to recall if a court disapproves of the plan. I mean, the language I'm sure it'll be fine. I mean, I realize this is an edge case, but I thought dissolve sounds permanent to me, which means
I suggest we use the word adjourn, and then we can reconvene if if,
Yeah.
if necessary.
Sounds good.
Is everybody okay with that suggestion from Chair Clegg? Okay, I'll take that as a consensus change. And that finishes up our rules document. Unless there are other changes that people have that were not noted from our past meeting. Anything else? So what I'd like to do is entertain a motion to adopt these rules for redistricting, the procedural rules for redistricting group, the consensus changes, and for approval.
So moved, Abbott.
Second, Rubenstein.
It's moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion before us? Seeing, yes, Mr. Ginder.
Mr. Chair, I would like to just amend that and to further add that, and then forward to the full Charter Commission with our recommendation. And that way we can take care of it all at once.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you. Is the seconder okay with that?
I'm the mover and I'm okay with it.
Oh,
Abbott.
you're the mover.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair.
So the mover and the seconder are okay with that. That's a friendly amendment. All right. So without further discussion, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner Abbott,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginder,
Aye.
Commissioner Schwarzkopf,
Aye.
Commission Chair Clegg,
Aye.
Co-Chair Rubenstein,
Aye.
and Co-Chair Perry.
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
Okay, great work, everyone. Let's move on to item 5.2 on the agenda, which is considering revisions and recommendations to the guiding principles of the redistricting process. And we have, if we can get those up on the screen. It's a smaller set of recommendations for changes. And I think most of these came out of Christina Kendrick's interaction with our work group and with talking to Nicole Weber and Carol Bashoon. Attorney Bashoon has reviewed these and I think is largely agrees with them, but let's go through them. And I think there might be some others that have come up since then. So the first is section 1C. If we could put those back up on the screen again, please. I see them in a very tiny, Ted, I see them in a very tiny, they're not full screen. They're still not full screen.
They are to me, so.
Oh,
Yeah,
Okay.
Chair Perry, I'm seeing them full screen, so I apologize if for some reason they're not looking for you there.
okay. They aren't for me, but if everybody else is seeing them, that's great. That's what's important. So the first one is section 1C, consistent removed and disseminated added. Is there any comment on that? Hearing none, I will take that as a consensus item. The next one is section 1J. And you can see the change that is being recommended. Does anybody have any comment on this? Hearing none, I will put that as a consensus item. I'm going to hop to a memo that was provided to us by Ms. Bashoon, because we're in section 1. Can you speak to section 1Q and section 1R, Ms. Bashoon, where you caught a change that needed to be made? Where it says, once convened, the redistricting group shall revise the map in compliance with a valid court order.
Can we get back to that? I want to just find my comments that I sent to you on that.
Sure. There's
Okay.
another one in section 2D as well.
Okay. Thank you. If you could just go to the other ones.
Yep, will
Okay,
do.
thanks.
So in section 2A, added is the proposed add is the Charter Commission may appoint up to 9 advisory group members. That came from Christina as well. Any comment on that? Hearing none, I will put that as a consensus item. And section 3C, Christina is recommending delete the word should from the first line so that it reads advisory group members participate on an equal basis. And I think this is a point that we have some discussion here. So, comment? Commissioner Sandberg?
Thank you. I would take that out. I would make it, we expect the advisory group members to participate on an equal basis. I believe that's the expectation within the redistricting group. Maybe there's a better word that say are expected to participate, but, or just participate.
Okay, Commissioner Abbott and then Commissioner Rubenstein.
Well, I think the word that Commissioner Sandberg is looking for is shall. Advisory group members shall participate on an equal basis, I think would work. I hesitate to suggest it, though, subject to the wrath of former Commissioner Melendez, who, obviously I know has some feelings about the word shall, but I think either will or shall would do the trick here. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Commissioner Rubenstein and then Commissioner Ginder.
I think Commissioner Abbott's suggestion is fine. I was going to just suggest an alternative based upon Commissioner Sandberg's remarks, which is we could just say, which would be a matter of notice, that advisory group members are expected to. But I think I think it's clear that we all agree that it has to be strong. It's not just encouraged.
Okay. Well, let's hear from Commissioner Ginder first. Commissioner Ginder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I am fine with Christina's version. The simple fact of the matter is they do participate on an equal basis, just as a charter commissioner does. How much they want to participate is always going to be up to them. But I mean, they do participate. And what her line says is they participate on an equal basis with us. And I think that's perfectly fine. And they choose how much to participate. I mean, we can't mandate. We're saying they shall participate. When they show up at the meetings, that's participation. Is there a certain number of times they have to talk? So anyway, I'm perfectly fine with Christina Kendrick's version.
Commissioner Sandberg, Abbott, or Rubenstein, what do you say in response to Commissioner Ginder's comments there?
I'm fine with Christina Kendrick's language.
And I am as well.
I'm fine.
Okay, anybody else want to weigh in before we mark that as a consensus item? Okay, that is marked as a consensus item, deleting the word should. And Attorney Bashoon, have you dug up the email that you sent us?
Yeah. Yes, Commissioner Perry. So with respect to, I did recommend that when we first, in another meeting, we discussed R. And in R, we had a discussion about once reconvened, and I'm glad we use that language in the other document. Once reconvened, the districting group shall revise the map in compliance with a valid court order. We had a discussion on that and to say what kind of language should we use there. We changed it in R, but we did not change it in Q. Q has different language where it says shall revise the map in compliance with the district court order and again after approval of the map, etc. So I was just saying, since this group discussed R and came up with that language, it should also be reflected in Q. Because Q and R are similar. Q relates to the wards, and R relates to the park districts. And both of them talk about the process where if there's a court order, then the redistricting group has to reconvene to consider what the court order says.
That seems perfectly reasonable to me. Anybody else have any comment? So I will take that as a, Maddie, did you get that change?
I don't have the exact language on that change, but is it just changing all of the language where it says district court order within Q to valid court order?
It would say, may I, Commissioner?
Yes, please.
It would say in Q, once reconvened, the redistricting group shall revise the map in compliance with a valid court order, comma. And then the rest of the sentence would be after approval of the map by a majority of the charter commissioners voting at a duly called meeting of the charter commission, etc. And then Commissioner Perry, I can talk about the other comment.
Yes, please do.
Under 2D, 2D has some language that was actually discussed at the redistricting, at the redistricting advisory selection work group. 2D says the charter commission will be looking for persons to serve on the advisory group who will bring diversity to the redistricting group. There was a discussion had at the redistricting advisory selection work group where instead of saying who will bring diversity, we would have alternative language. And that was brought up by Christina. Because it's not about the person itself, it's about what they will bring forward in their thought process. So I suggested saying who will bring, instead of who will bring diversity to the redistricting group, I said who will bring a diverse perspective to the redistricting group. And that was language that we came up with at the redistricting advisory selection work group.
Any comment from anyone? I think that's a good change too. And we're trying to be in sync with what's happening with the selection, the redistricting group selection work group. So I think that's a good change. I'm hearing no objections, so I'll put that as a consensus item. And I think that's covered anything. Is there anything else in the principles document that people have that they want to bring up? Commissioner Sandberg, you had some things that you had emailed me this morning. Do you want to talk about those?
Thank you. And some of them may have been discussed already by the group, but the language in E, that the city council shall provide funding, is this document going to be approved by the city council? I think not. How can we tell them that they shall provide funding? I assume it will be provided. Pardon?
It's in the charter that they have to provide funding for redistricting.
Is it that language? I thought it was a little squishier. I'll go back and look at the charter.
Yeah.
I'll check the charter. Okay, most of my other comments were just consistency issues, making sure cities capitalized when it needs to be capitalized. The use of the term communities of interest, because in one place, somewhere else, it's communities, and I'm not sure they're the same or not in your thinking. And the training that the city attorney's office offers, I assume we'll add more to it than just the city attorney. For instance, NCR might provide some useful input into that training experience, but that's not in here. I think that's in another page somewhere. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubenstein, and then Commissioner Chair Clegg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to offer another additional information to Commissioner Sandberg's question about the city council and financing. And that is only that the way we had the language in the past was to say that we, as the redistricting group, would obtain financing, and we clearly don't do that on our own. And so that's why we changed the language as well.
Chair Clegg.
Thank you. Having the charter conveniently handy, it is section 2.2C4 of the charter, which says the city council must provide for the staff and other resources that the commission needs. This is in the redistricting section, so maybe we should use the word must.
Well, that's not squishy at all.
It certainly is not.
So what item was that again? In the principles? Is that E?
I think it's E.
So do we want to keep it the same, or do we want to put must provide funding to keep it in line with what the charter is saying? Any thoughts?
I would not use either word. I would just say the council provides funding. Not must, not shall, not will.
That's a good change. I like that. Anyone else on that change that Chair Clegg has suggested?
I agree with Chair Clegg. I don't think we need to stir the political pot.
So that language changes. The city council provides funding for the redistricting process. Okay. So I think that's everything on the recommended principles for redistricting Minneapolis wards and park districts after the 2020 census document. We have, as I said we would be approving the consensus items. I think we've got consensus on all the items for the changes or not changes. And so I would entertain a motion similar to the one that we did on the rules document.
I'll move Mr. Chair, Schwarzkopf.
Second, Clegg.
So this will be approving the consensus items. It's moved and seconded to be approving the consensus items and recommending for approval the document by the full commission. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Abbott,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginder,
Aye.
Commissioner Schwarzkopf,
Aye.
Commission Chair Clegg,
Aye.
Co-Chair Rubenstein,
Aye.
and Co-Chair Perry.
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
Great. We're ahead of schedule. Unless there's any other business, I think we've concluded all the business to come before the Charter Commission's Redistricting Rules Work Group. And without objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you all for your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.